Okay, so today I'm going to be fitting this Response branded universal USB socket to an MY99 Subaru WRX. So we're going to replace the factory cigarette lighter socket with this USB socket. So our first order of business is going to be to remove the trim fascia from around the heater controls and the radio, because that's where our cigarette lighter port is. That's what we're going to replace. We always need to be careful when working with plastic, so these plastic trim remover tools are great for this sort of work, especially in winter where plastic's a little bit stiffer and more rigid, more prone to breakage. So the top of the stereo and heater trim panel just pops out on some retainers, like so. Unfortunately, it's kind of held in place with the trim panel around the gear shifter. So what we need to do next is to remove the gear shift trim. Oh, we can. Okay, so that trim's out. Now we can get our radio fascia trim out as well, like so. Unplug the connectors. No need to mark them, they only go in one way. Like so. There's our trim assembly out with our cigarette socket. That's the part we're going to replace. Alright, back to the bench. Okay, so here's our assembly removed out of the car. What we want to do now is just to take the cigarette lighter out of its retainer or housing. That's just done by taking this little pressed steel nut off the back. Not on there tight. Like so, and it just pops out. So this is what we're going to replace with this, like so. So we're going to keep the factory light up trim ring. Once we just carefully remove it. Like that. Okay, now the socket has two little locating lugs on the side there, depending on your car, a particular application. If you have a factory trim ring to use, you may have to trim one of those off. Okay, and in this particular case we do. So first of all we need to check where the trim ring fits in the original car's housing. It's got a locating lug here and here, so it fits like that. And we want our socket to go in with the writing in the right position, like this. Okay, so you can see there we need to trim this lug off the socket. That's going to be real simple. We're just going to use a nice blade and trim that off, like that. Now that's going to fit the way we want it. so like that. Okay, now if we go to the back and hold that in place, we run our lighting housing down over the socket. And the reason we're fitting this is because this is going to light up the trim ring. Like that. And we can see there that the difference in length in the socket is going to inhibit us putting the back retainer on to keep it in there. So what we need to do is modify the original housing here. We need to shorten it so we have enough thread on the back of the socket to fit the retainer. So that's okay, we can do that. So I want to take about 5mm off the length of this illumination housing. Okay, but we need to keep this front light reflector, so that's going to be a little bit tricky, but we can still do that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to shorten this, as I said before, and keep this front reflector. Okay, so that's not really that difficult. We just need to open the reflector up without snapping it off. It's just folded as part of the pressing on this assembly. What we are going to do is just take our bulb out so that we don't damage it with vibration in the process. Let's put it aside. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to shorten everything. So you can measure this any way you want. I'm going to use my combination square just with a pencil. The reason I'm using a pencil is because I don't have a thin pointed marker, and if I use my thick marker I'm going to end up with a thick line. I'll probably trim 10mm off. We don't need to go too overboard with this, we just need enough, because I don't want to lose the factory earth ring attachment. I guess if you don't want to go to this much trouble, if you don't care about losing the illumination, well, you can just hack it off, but don't do that. We're better than that. Like that. So we're just going to zip that off with the angle grinder. Okay, so here it is, the housing trimmed off. Here's the piece that came off and a little piece off the front, so we can get rid of those. So all we need to do now is reshape the light deflector. Like that. And then it gets folded down here. Like this. Like that. Check how socket fits in there. Which it does. Nice. Okay. So now we're ready to try it in the stereo surround trim again. Okay, so here it is. And we want our illumination ring on here. Located the right way around. Our USB socket. In the right orientation, like so. And we put our housing on. Wouldn't hurt to have a friend give you a hand with this. Like so. And you can see now we have plenty of thread there for our retaining nut, so let's just do a trial fitment of it. While we're holding everything in place by hand, like that. And that's basically how it's going to fit, like that. Okay, nice. So what we're going to do now is sort out our wiring. So if you're putting it in a, if you're replacing a factory cigarette lighter socket, the power feed to it is already going to be fused anyhow, so we don't need this extra inline fuse. That's just extra bulk for nothing in behind our dash. So what we need to do is just pick up a power source and a ground for the unit, and we're good to go. So I'm going to tap into this ground, this one here, and for our power one, I'm just going to put a male spade fitting on this wire so that the factory wiring can plug straight onto it. So I'm going to just get rid of that. Take the end off this guy. Also at the same time I'm going to get my soldering iron heated up. So it's going to go on there like that. Just going to crimp it on first. And solder it. Like that. Next is our ground wire. So what we're going to do to it is just pop the terminal out of the factory plug first. It's really simple. Just push against the lock tag and it comes out. Then, because this is part of the housing anyway, I'm just going to solder straight onto it. Just get solder straight onto it. Like so. And what we do is just reshape the lock tag on the connector. Like that. And push it back into its original location. Like that. All good. I'm just going to shrink our heat shrink onto the power lead. And that's it all wired up. So what we do now is just do final fitment and we can put it back in the car. So once we've got the socket centered where we want it and everything, and the illumination ring nice and even all the way around and looking good, happy with that. Just need to tighten that up by hand, this nut, and what I'm going to do is just put a couple of drops of super glue on it. And it's just going to run down into the thread a little bit to lock that nut. And put a couple on the unit itself against the nut just to stop it vibrating loose. And refit the bulb. And that's it. Now our unit's in the radio fascia surround and it's ready to fit back in the car. So let's do that. So as far as refitting the unit to the car, it's just basically a reversal of the removal. So first of all we're going to connect all the plugs. Remember, they can only go on to their specific mate because they're all different shape, so don't have to worry about getting them wrong. It just gets tucked away up under there, and then we push the trim back in on the clips. Click, 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 click. Just like that. So there it is, there's our little USB socket. Now we refit the gear selector trim. This can be flexed enough to just push it sideways up underneath this panel. Click, 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 click. Click, click. Like that. Put our ashtray back in there. There it is. How about we try it out? Okay, so there's the there's when the power is applied, it glows. The center glows blue. And when we turn the lights on the car, we get the illumination ring glow around the outside. You can see it there, which will dim with the dimmer, like that. With the other dash lights. So let's plug something in. I'm going to plug my iPhone in, which I'm already using to video. It's a nice tight fit in the plug. Plug it in my phone, and we're charging. Okay, thanks guys.